The Imperial survey ship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of an unremarkable solar system. Its sensors immediately began scanning the third planet, a blue-green marble suspended in space. Captain Robert of the survey vessel smiled as he reviewed the initial readings. Another primitive world to add to the Empire's ever-growing collection. "Sir, we're detecting artificial satellites and basic space stations in orbit," reported Officer Tom, his eyes fixed on the scanning console. "Their technology level appears to be pre-FTL. They haven't even established a base on their moon yet." Robert nodded, already drafting his report to Imperial Command in his mind. These humans, as they called themselves, would make an excellent addition to the Empire's workforce. Their industrial capacity seemed promising, even if their space technology was laughably outdated. What the Imperial survey ship failed to detect, however, was a sleek vessel hidden in the shadow of Earth's moon. The experimental warship Thunderchild sat silently, its quantum shields and stealth systems making it invisible to the Empire's standard scanning technology. Inside the Thunderchild, Captain James Miller watched the alien vessel with intense interest. This wasn't humanity's first glimpse of the Empire. Earth's governments had been secretly monitoring their expansion for years, but it was the first time the Empire had directly scanned Earth. "Log everything," Miller ordered his crew of 20. "Every frequency they use, every scan they perform. We need to know exactly what they can and cannot detect." The crew worked in focused silence, their training showing in their calm demeanor despite the historical significance of the moment. Each of them had been carefully selected and trained for this mission, knowing they might be humanity's first and last line of defense. Back on Earth, the United Earth Defense Council gathered in their underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. General Thompson stood before the holographic display showing the Imperial survey ship. "Ladies and gentlemen," he addressed the assembled leaders, "the moment we've been preparing for has arrived. Our deep space monitoring stations detected their fleet movements 3 months ago. Now they're here, right on schedule." The room remained silent as the implications sank in. For 15 years, Earth had maintained the appearance of a divided, technologically primitive world. All space launches were deliberately messy, satellites were intentionally basic, and their moon base was carefully hidden underground. Meanwhile, in high orbit, the Imperial survey ship completed its scan. Robert smiled as he transmitted his findings to the Empire's invasion fleet waiting several systems away. His report was brief and confident. Planet designation: Sol 3. Dominant species: human. Technology level: pre-FTL, early space age. Military capability: minimal. Recommended approach: standard conquest protocol. Notes: planet shows significant industrial capacity. Population will make excellent labor force for the Empire shipyards. As the transmission went out, Officer Tom spoke up again. "Sir, we're detecting some unusual energy readings from their planet. They might be developing some form of advanced power generation." Robert dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. "Probably just their primitive nuclear fission plants. Mark it as a potential resource site for later exploitation." The survey ship turned away from Earth, preparing to jump back to hyperspace. They never noticed the Thunderchild adjusting its position, using Earth's magnetic field to mask its engine signature. In the following hours, Earth received exactly what they had expected: the Empire's standard surrender demand, broadcast on all frequencies in multiple languages. The message was clear: submit to Imperial rule within 48 hours, or face immediate military action. The United Earth Defense Council's response was equally simple. They sent back a message filled with fear and confusion, asking for more time to consult among Earth's nations. It was exactly what the Empire expected from a primitive, divided world. But aboard the Thunderchild, Captain Miller and his crew completed their final weapon checks. The ship's quantum shields hummed at minimum power, and its dark matter cannons remained cold and dormant. They would stay that way until the perfect moment. when the Empire's fleet arrived expecting an easy conquest. "Let them come," Miller whispered, looking at the strange stars through his view screen. "Let them think we're defenseless. That's exactly what we want them to think." 5 years earlier, deep beneath the Mariana Trench, humanity's greatest secret took shape. The massive underwater facility housed thousands of engineers and scientists, all working on Project Guardian. At its heart lay the experimental warship that would later be named Thunderchild. Dr. Anna Clark stood before the vessel's quantum shield generator, her life's work finally taking physical form. 20 years ago, we thought it was impossible," she said to the touring military officials. "Then we detected the Empire's communications, and impossible became necessary." The quantum shield was humanity's breakthrough. Unlike the Empire's energy barriers, which tried to stop incoming fire, the quantum shield could absorb enemy attacks and redirect that energy. It was an idea born from studying martial arts, using an opponent's strength against them. "But the shields aren't our only advantage," explained Major David West, the project's military supervisor. He led the group to a massive window overlooking the ship's main weapon system. "This is the dark matter cannon. The Empire doesn't even know dark matter can be weaponized." The officials watched as technicians loaded the specialized ammunition. Each shell contained a tiny amount of dark matter, compressed and engineered to interact with normal matter in devastating ways. It was a weapon that could bypass Imperial shields entirely. They were designed to stop energy and physical objects, not dark matter. In another part of the facility, Commander Emma Reed trained with her crew. They practiced battle scenarios in simulators built using data collected from monitoring Imperial fleet movements. Hour after hour, they learned to think differently than their future opponents. "The Empire fights like a machine," Emma told her crew during a break. "They follow the same tactics they've used for 500 years. They expect everyone to fight the same way. That's why they keep winning. But we won't fight their way." The crew nodded seriously. They had been chosen not just for their skills, but for their ability to think creatively. Each one had proven they could solve problems in unique ways. Together, they would show the Empire that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their ability to adapt and innovate. Above them, on the ocean's surface, fishing boats moved back and forth. To any watching eyes, including Imperial survey ships, it looked like normal human activity. No one would guess that beneath those waves, humanity was preparing its surprise for the galaxy. Back in the facility's command center, General Thompson reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The Empire's expansion followed a clear pattern: survey, demand surrender, invade. They never expected resistance. Why should they? Their technology was centuries ahead of most civilizations they encountered. "The hard part isn't building the weapons," Thompson said to his staff. "The hard part is looking weak. Every satellite we launch has to look primitive. Every space mission has to seem clumsy. We have to make them underestimate us." The deception went beyond technology. Earth's governments publicly argued and competed with each other, all while secretly working together. The world's best scientists shared their research in hidden facilities. Soldiers from different nations trained together, preparing for the day when humanity would face its greatest test. Dr. Clark made final adjustments to the quantum shield's controls. "Some of the Empire's best technology is 500 years old," she explained to her team. "They stopped innovating because they stopped needing to. Every race they conquered just copied their designs." She smiled as the shield harmonics aligned perfectly. "But humans? We've never stopped innovating. We've never stopped asking, what if? That's what they don't understand about us. That's why they'll lose." In his private quarters, Captain Miller reviewed the mission briefings again. The Thunderchild would be humanity's only chance. If they failed, Earth would fall like so many worlds before it. But if they succeeded, they would show the galaxy that humanity was far more than the Empire believed. "They think technology makes them superior," Miller said to himself, watching recordings of Imperial ships in battle. "They forgot that technology is just a tool. It's the mind that wields it that matters. The Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 500 warships, their golden hulls gleaming in the sunlight, arranged in the Empire's standard conquest pattern. At the center, Admiral Ross stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Imperial Dawn, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. "Primitive defenses detected, sir," reported his tactical officer. 20 small warships in high orbit. No energy shields. Basic weapon systems only. He paused, checking his readings again. They appear to be powered by nuclear fission reactors. Admiral Ross almost laughed. He had conquered 32 worlds in his career, but this might be the easiest yet. "Send the final warning," he ordered. "They have 1 hour to surrender before we begin our attack." Behind Earth's moon, the Thunder Child remained hidden. Captain Miller and his crew watched their sensors as more Imperial ships arrived. Each vessel was carefully scanned, its weaknesses noted, its position marked. "Look at that formation," Miller said quietly, "exactly like the training simulations. They haven't changed their tactics in centuries." He turned to his weapons officer. "Are the dark matter cannons ready?" "Yes, sir," came the response. "All systems are charged but dormant. They won't detect anything until we power up." On Earth, the Defense Council watched through their global sensor network. The Imperial fleet was massive, more ships than humanity had ever seen in one place. But size wasn't everything, and humanity had planned for this moment for years. General Thompson addressed the world's hidden defense forces. "All units, maintain your positions. Remember your training. Let them think they're facing a primitive, disorganized resistance. That's our advantage." In space, Earth's visible defense fleet moved into position. 20 old ships, deliberately designed to look outdated and weak. Their crews knew they were bait, but they also knew they weren't as helpless as they appeared. Admiral Ross grew impatient as the hour passed. These humans were clearly too disorganized to even respond properly to an ultimatum. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Standard conquest formation. Disable their primitive fleet first, then we'll start taking out their ground infrastructure." The Imperial fleet moved forward in their perfect pattern. Smaller ships formed the front line, while larger warships hung back to provide support. It was a formation that had won countless battles across the galaxy. "Sir," an Imperial sensor operator suddenly called out, "I'm detecting some unusual readings from their ships. They might have some sword-off." "Irrelevant," Ross interrupted. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. Begin the attack." The first wave of Imperial ships opened fire. Their energy weapons lit up space, streaking toward Earth's seemingly helpless defenders. But something unexpected happened. The old Earth ships didn't try to dodge. Instead, they activated hidden systems that absorbed the Imperial fire, their hulls glowing with stored energy. Ross leaned forward in his command chair. "What was that?" "Report." Before his officers could respond, movement behind the Imperial fleet caught their attention. The Thunder Child had emerged from its hiding place, its quantum shields now fully visible as they rippled with power. "Unknown vessel detected," shouted the tactical officer. "Sir, it's not showing up on our standard scans. We can't get a reading on its weapons or defenses." Miller smiled as he gave the order they'd practiced countless times. "All units, execute Battle Plan Phoenix. Show them what humanity can really do." The Earth Defense Fleet suddenly changed formation, moving in ways that confused the Imperial targeting systems. Their absorbed energy was redirected, turning the Empire's own weapon fire back against them. At the same time, the Thunder Child fired its first dark matter shell. The Imperial ship's golden shields flickered uselessly as the dark matter passed straight through them, causing devastating damage to the ships beneath. Admiral Ross stood up, watching in shock as his perfect formation began to break apart. "Impossible," he whispered. "They're supposed to be primitive. They're supposed to be defenseless." But Earth was neither primitive nor defenseless. and the battle had only just begun. Chaos erupted across the Imperial fleet as the Thunderchild struck again and again. Each dark matter shell tore through their supposedly impenetrable shields, leaving twisted metal and disabled ships in its wake. Captain Miller watched from his command chair as his crew executed their battle plan with precision. 3 enemy cruisers disabled, sir, reported his weapons officer. Their shields can't stop our dark matter rounds. They're trying to adapt, but they don't understand what they're facing. Miller nodded, keeping his eyes on the tactical display. Execute pattern Delta. Let's show them what else we can do. The Thunderchild moved with impossible grace for a ship its size, its quantum shields absorbing enemy fire and converting it into additional power. In Earth's orbit, the decoy fleet revealed its true nature. What had appeared to be primitive nuclear reactors were actually advanced power cores, hidden beneath layers of sensor-blocking materials. Their hulls, seemingly made of basic metals, transformed as metamaterial coating activated, making them nearly invisible to Imperial targeting systems. Admiral Ross watched in growing horror as his fleet's formation crumbled. How are they doing this? Where did they get this technology? He slammed his fist on his command console. All ships, concentrate fire on that new vessel. It must be destroyed. But targeting the Thunderchild proved nearly impossible. The ship's quantum shields didn't just absorb energy. They bent it around the hull, making conventional targeting useless. Imperial gunners found themselves firing at afterimages and sensor ghosts while the real ship struck from unexpected angles. Sir, called out Miller's sensor officer. They're adapting their shield frequencies, trying to find a way to block the dark matter rounds. Miller smiled. They had expected this. Activate the resonance cannons. Let's give them something else to think about. New weapons emerged from the Thunderchild's hull. These cannons fired beams that matched the exact frequency of Imperial shields, causing them to vibrate until they shattered completely. It was like hitting a wine glass with exactly the right musical note. On Earth, General Thompson coordinated the ground-based response. Hidden defense platforms emerged from the ocean depths, their railguns launching specialized projectiles at the Imperial fleet. These weren't simple metal rounds. Each one contained a miniature quantum field generator that disrupted Imperial ship systems on impact. Ground batteries report multiple hits. An officer reported. Enemy ships are losing power and coordination. Their battle network is starting to fail. The Imperial fleet's rigid formation had become a liability. Ships crashed into each other as their navigation systems failed. Attempts to regroup were disrupted by the Thunderchild's hit-and-run attacks. Earth's decoy fleet, now revealing its true capabilities, picked off isolated enemy vessels with surgical precision. Admiral Ross watched his tactical display with growing desperation. A third of his fleet was already disabled or destroyed. Another third was trapped by their own tight formation, unable to maneuver effectively. The remaining ships were scattered, their crews confused and frightened by weapons they'd never seen before. Sir, his tactical officer spoke quietly. We need to retreat. We can't fight what we don't understand. But Ross couldn't accept defeat. No, the Empire doesn't retreat. We are superior. His words were cut short as a dark matter round passed through his flagship's bridge shields, destroying their main control systems. On the Thunderchild, Miller watched the Imperial fleet's coordination collapse. All ships, execute final phase, he ordered. Let's end this decisively. Earth's defenders moved as one, their practiced maneuvers herding the remaining Imperial ships into a killing zone. The Thunderchild led the charge, its quantum shields glowing bright as they absorbed and redirected every desperate shot the Empire fired. The battle was far from over, but one thing had become clear. Humanity was not the primitive, helpless species the Empire had expected to find. They were something far more dangerous, an enemy that had prepared, adapted, and waited for exactly this moment. Admiral Ross stood in his damaged flagship's secondary command center, watching his mighty fleet fall apart. The ship's main bridge was destroyed. Life support worked at half power, and their supposedly superior weapons seemed useless against Earth's defenders. "Status report," he demanded, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "Sir, we've lost 40% of our fleet," his surviving tactical officer reported. "Another 30% are too damaged to fight. The rest—" He paused, swallowing hard. "The rest are being systematically destroyed by their main warship." The Thunderchild proved this point by launching another devastating attack. Its dark matter cannons fired in a precise pattern, disabling engine systems on 3 Imperial cruisers simultaneously. The human ship's quantum shields flickered with stored energy, growing stronger with each Imperial attack it absorbed. "How?" Ross whispered. "How did we miss this? Their technology. It's not just advanced, it's completely different from ours." On the Thunderchild, Captain Miller coordinated with Earth's defense fleet. The older ships, now fully revealed as advanced vessels, executed complex maneuvers that scattered the remaining Imperial forces. Their metamaterial hulls bent light and sensor readings, making them seem to appear and disappear at will. "Target their command and control systems," Miller ordered. "Don't destroy them if you can avoid it. We want prisoners, not martyrs." Earth's defensive platforms added to the Empire's confusion. They fired specialized electromagnetic pulses that disrupted Imperial communications. Ship after ship lost contact with their fleet network, forced to fight alone against an enemy that worked in perfect coordination. Admiral Ross watched helplessly as the humans systematically dismantled his fleet's remaining offensive capability. Their tactics were unlike anything in Imperial records: unpredictable, adaptive, and devastatingly effective. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from their lead ship." Captain Miller's voice filled the Imperial Command Center. "Admiral Ross, your fleet is defeated. Your ships are either disabled or trapped. Surrender now, and we'll guarantee the safety of your crews." Ross looked at his tactical display. The humans had indeed boxed in his remaining ships. The Thunderchild had positioned itself perfectly to strike any vessel that tried to escape. Earth's defense fleet had created a perfect kill zone. "If we surrender," Ross replied, his voice tight with tension, "what guarantee do we have of fair treatment?" Miller's response was calm and measured. "Unlike the Empire, we don't enslave conquered peoples. Your crews will be treated according to Earth's laws on prisoners of war. They'll be safe, well treated, and eventually return to Imperial space." In orbit around Earth, the remaining Imperial ships watched their admiral's flagship. The Empire had not surrendered a fleet in over 5 centuries, but they had never faced an enemy like this before. "Perhaps," Ross said slowly, "we should have studied your species more carefully before assuming you were primitive." "That was your first mistake," Miller replied. "You saw what you expected to see. You never asked why a supposedly primitive species would maintain such a small space fleet. You never wondered why we showed no fear of your arrival." The Thunderchild powered down its weapons, but kept its quantum shields at full strength. Earth's defense fleet maintained their positions, ready to resume the attack if necessary. Ross looked at his surviving officers. Their faces showed the same realization he had reached. They had gravely underestimated humanity. What they thought would be an easy conquest had become a humiliating defeat. "Very well," Ross finally said. "I, Admiral Ross of the Imperial Fleet, formally surrender my remaining forces to Earth's Defense Command." As the surrender was transmitted across all frequencies, Miller turned to his crew. "Send word to Earth. Tell them Phase 1 is complete." He looked at the disabled Imperial ships floating in space. "Now comes the hard part, showing the galaxy that humanity is ready to take its place among the stars." The battle was over, but humanity's journey to reshape the galaxy had just begun. The Imperial Palace on the capital world of Nova Prime had never been so quiet. Emperor Marcus stood at his window, staring at the endless city below, trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. Behind him, his advisors waited nervously, holding reports about the disaster at Earth. "Read it again," the Emperor commanded, his voice barely above a whisper. "Read the full report." The chief military advisor cleared his throat. "The Earth campaign has failed, Your Majesty. Admiral Ross's fleet was defeated by previously unknown human technology. Half the ships were destroyed or disabled. The rest surrendered." He paused, then added, "This is our first major defeat in 500 years." In the Imperial War Room, generals and admirals argued fiercely over tactical displays showing the battle. They watched recordings of the Thunder Child using its quantum shields, dark matter weapons, and impossible maneuvers. "Their technology doesn't make sense," one general said, pointing at the screens. "They don't use any of our standard systems. It's like they developed everything from scratch, in completely different ways." Another admiral spoke up, his voice worried. "The humans didn't just beat us. They showed everyone in the galaxy that our technology has weaknesses they can exploit." News of the defeat spread quickly across Imperial space. On 1,000 worlds, people watched grainy footage of Imperial ships being disabled by weapons they'd never seen before. The Empire's image of invincibility was shattered. Back on Nova Prime, the Emperor called an emergency meeting of the Imperial Council. Representatives from every major Imperial world attended, either in person or through holograms. "The humans knew we were coming," the intelligence director reported. "They spent years preparing. While we watched them launch primitive satellites, they were building advanced weapons in secret. While we thought they were divided and weak, they were unified and strong." The council chamber erupted in angry shouts and accusations. Some demanded immediate revenge against Earth. Others wanted to copy human technology. A few suggested making peace before other worlds realized they could resist the Empire too. On a secure channel, the Emperor spoke directly with Admiral Ross, now a prisoner on Earth. "Tell me honestly," he asked, "how did they defeat you?" Ross's hologram looked tired but determined. "They think differently, Your Majesty. We've used the same tactics, the same technology, the same strategies for centuries. The humans, they question everything. They look for new ways to solve problems." In the Imperial Science Academy, researchers studied the limited data they had on human technology. The quantum shields especially confused them. The Empire had never considered using enemy weapons against them like that. "Their whole approach to science is different," the chief researcher explained to his team. "We build on what we know works. They ask what if and try completely new ideas. That's why we didn't see this coming." The Emperor faced a difficult choice. The Empire's military demanded revenge, but their best analysts warned that a second attack on Earth would likely fail. The humans now had combat experience with their weapons, and other worlds were watching closely. "We have 3 options," his strategic advisor said. "We can attack again and risk another defeat. We can pretend this never happened and lose face across the galaxy. Or, the Emperor asked, "or we can acknowledge them as equals, open diplomatic relations. Try to learn from them instead of conquering them." The very idea shocked many in the Imperial court. The Empire didn't negotiate with primitive worlds. They conquered them. But Earth had proved it was far from primitive. Messages arrived from other alien civilizations, requesting information about human technology. Some even suggested alliances with Earth instead of the Empire. The balance of power that had existed for centuries was starting to shift. The Emperor looked at the latest reports from Earth. The humans had begun repairing damaged Imperial ships, treating prisoners with respect, and offering to return them once diplomatic relations were established. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "it's time for the Empire to learn how to change." 1 month after the Battle of Earth, the Thunder Child led a very different kind of mission. Captain Miller stood on his bridge, watching as his ship escorted the Imperial diplomatic vessels through Earth's solar system. This time, they came not to conquer, but to negotiate. "Quite a change from last month," his first officer commented, looking at the Imperial ships. Their weapons were powered down, their shields running at minimum power, a sign of trust that would have been unthinkable before. "Change is what humans do best," Miller replied. He remembered the battle, how the Empire's mighty fleet had learned that lesson the hard way. On Earth, the United Defense Council had transformed into the Human Diplomatic Corps. The underground bunker now hosted representatives from 20 different alien civilizations. All of them wanted to talk about trade, technology sharing, and military alliances with Earth. General Thompson, now Earth's chief diplomat, greeted each alien delegation personally. "A month ago, they thought we were primitives," he told his staff. "Now they're lining up to learn from us. Funny how quick things can change." The Thunderchild had become famous across the galaxy. Dozens of alien engineering teams requested permission to study its quantum shields and dark matter weapons. But Earth kept its most advanced technology secret, sharing only older innovations as signs of good faith. "We show them enough to know we're strong," Dr. Clark explained as she worked on new improvements to the quantum shields. "But we keep developing, keep innovating. That's the real lesson the Empire never learned. Never stop improving." Admiral Ross, released from custody as a gesture of peace, returned to Imperial space with a changed perspective. In his official report to the Emperor, he wrote, "The humans' greatest weapon isn't their technology. It's their creativity, their ability to think in ways we never considered." The Imperial fleet began changing its tactics and technology for the first time in centuries. Young officers studied the Battle of Earth, learning painful but valuable lessons about innovation and adaptation. The Empire's rigid military doctrine started to evolve. On the edges of human space, the Thunderchild and its sister ships, now revealed from other secret shipyards, patrolled with quiet confidence. Other civilizations learned to respect Earth's borders. The sight of a human warship was enough to prevent any thoughts of aggression. "We're not the biggest civilization out there," Miller told his crew during a patrol. "We're not the oldest or the richest, but we've shown them something they never expected. Humans don't follow the rules. We make our own." Back on Earth, construction began on new facilities. Shipyards rose in orbit, building vessels that combined human innovation with lessons learned from studying Imperial technology. Each ship improved on the last, never staying the same, always evolving. In the Imperial Palace, the Emperor signed a historic peace treaty with Earth. The document acknowledged humanity as equals, established trade routes, and formally recognized Earth's territory. More importantly, it marked the first time the Empire had treated a younger civilization as a partner rather than a subject. "The galaxy is changing," the Emperor announced to his people. "We can either change with it or be left behind. The humans have taught us that there is always more to learn." The Thunderchild received new orders to lead an expedition beyond known space. Captain Miller looked at his crew, seeing the excitement in their eyes. They had proved themselves in battle. Now they would prove themselves in peace. "Humanity's story is just beginning," Miller said as they prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed. "We've shown them what one human warship can do. Now let's show them what humanity can really achieve." As the Thunderchild disappeared into the depths of space, it carried with it humanity's greatest strengths: curiosity, innovation, and the constant drive to push boundaries. The galaxy had learned that Earth wasn't defenseless. Now it would learn that humanity was just getting started. The Empire had thought Earth was weak. One ship had proved them wrong. And in doing so, it had changed not just humanity's future, but the future of every civilization in the galaxy.